Check, check. Yes.
One more round. One more round. Just want to make sure everybody has enough handouts. Here, pass these around. Take one, pass it Yada bim, yada bam, yada bim, yada bam, yada bim bam, bim bam, bim bam. yada bim,
Ba-da-bum.
yada bim,
Ba-da-bum.
yada bim bum bim bum. I chitty 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 bim bum bum. I chitty 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 bim bum bum. I chitty 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 bim bum bum. I chitty 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 bum. Chitty bim,
Biddy-bum.
chitty bim,
Chitty-bum.
chitty bim bum bim bum bim bum. Chitty bim,
Chitty-bum.
chitty bim,
Chitty-bum.
chitty bim bum bim bum bim bum. I chitty 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 bim bum bum. I chitty 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 bim bum bum. I chitty 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 bim bum bum. I chitty 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 bum. One more time. Chitty bim,
Chitty-bum.
chitty bim,
Chitty-bum.
chitty bim bum bim bum bim bum. Chitty bim,
Chitty-bum.
chitty bim,
Chitty-bum.
chitty bim bum bim bum bim bum. All together. I chitty 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 bim bum bum. I chitty 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 bim bum bum. I chitty 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 bim bum bum. I chitty 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 bum. Ooh, we a little bit warmed up. Yes, almost. Okay, we're kind of pushing play on this day and letting it all unfold and experiencing it in its fullness. I want to welcome everybody, whether it's your first time or your second time or lost count, and wave everybody to everybody in YouTube land. Right, right. And need to make sure everybody knows that tomorrow morning at 10:30, where is she? Noah Linder will be called to the Bima for the first time as a bat mitzvah. And in honor of that marking that special day, I want to invite the entire Linder family up to offer this prayer on page 3 and light the candles. And Michelle, I just want you to note there are 3 books of matches and a lighter. One, two, three, go.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own way, be among those who kindle light.
Go ahead, light it. Make sure it's my key. You got a lighter there, and 3 books of matches. Something's got to work. Sure. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner Shel Shabbat. No. Sure, go ahead. Everybody cover your eyes while she's lighting it again. Oh, good. All right. Invite us to turn to page 5, and Noah will lead us in the Kiddush.
Borei Peri Hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'ha'ava uvratzon, kinhulanu zikron l'maaseh bereshit, ki hu yom techila l'mikra kodesh, zecher l'yitziat Mitzrayim, ki vanu v'charta, ve'otanu kidashta, Mikol Hamim V'Shabbat Kodshecha B'Ahava Uvratzon Hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mikadesh HaShabbat.
Amen.
L'chaim. So Shabbat Shalom. I usually say I know for a fact, but I think I can say that. I know for a fact that there's at least one person in this room that you don't know. So without swarming maybe those 2 or 3 people, let's make a new friend or remind each other of our names, share something about one another. Yes, this is a cross the aisle exercise. Just take a moment and wish one another Shabbat Shalom. It went out. So good to see you. I'm so glad you're here. Shabbat Shalom. Fun tidbit. Okay. One tidbit. So we've welcomed one another. Let's welcome the better angels. Welcome in those Malachei HaSharet of Shabbat. Page 24, Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bohem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shabbat Shalom. Oh, give us a little tinkling the ivories. Just a little something. So we're going to use a couple of handouts. With a little more notice, I would have consolidated into one, but there's 2. You'll forgive me. Starting at the one that looks like this. There should be enough for everybody. Pass them along from the ends if you don't have it. But really, this is an exercise in letting go of the week. Don't worry. Anything you're holding on to, it'll come back tomorrow night. You don't need it for today. Today, it's just about being where we are and together. And for right now, just recognizing that there might be things that we might not want to carry into Shabbat. Maybe a little knot right here, a little knot right there, a knot right there. We are bound with tight knots. They choke off the air and stop the blood from pulsating freely. These knots, they make us like computers with carefully controlled circuitry. The knots in our brains, they tie our creativity. That's our link with you. As I continue with this reading, either follow along or find your knots and send energy to them. Loosen them up. We might follow those knots in our intricacy, but they still remain knots. The knots in our hearts keep from crying and dancing when we long to. They tie us to the posts of fences that separate us from each other. The knots in our muscles keep our chests tight, our teeth clenched, our jaws locked, our legs crossed, our shoulders stooped, our backs bent. They stop us from inhaling the full sweetness of life's breath. Oh God, untie our knots, which is exactly what this chant asks us for, asks God for, asks that we let go of these knots. So either chant it with me or scan the body and send it that air, spaciousness. Anna v'choach gedulat yamincha tatir tzerura. Anna v'choach gedulat yamincha tatir tzerura. Again. Anna v'choach gedulat yamincha tatir tzerura. Baruch Shem kevod malchuto leolam va'ed. Baruch Shem kevod malchuto leolam va'ed. Anna v'choach gedulat yamincha tatir tzerura. Anna v'choach gedulat yamincha tatir tzerura. It's time for our weekly dose of joy, our Yismachu mashup. I'd invite you to turn to page 13, but put a finger in page 44. We're going to get there quickly at the bottom paragraph. Yismachu means we're going to rejoice. Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz. That goes again. Yismechu hashamayim,
Hashamayim,
Yismechu hashamayim,
Hashamayim,
Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel
Haaretz.
Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, umelot. Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, umelot. 44. Another Yismachu. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת מקדשי שביעי שבת כולם יסבחו ויתענגו מטובך שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת והשביעי רצית בו וקידשתו שבת חמדת ימים אותו קראת שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת זכר למעשה בראשית שבת זכר למעשה בראשית שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת. Oh, breathe out the weak. וקוראי עונג שבת. לך דודי, come my beloved, page 20, verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. 9, 9. Page 20.
לך דודי לך שלום בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה ירדי בני שבת נקבלה שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד השמיענו אל המיוחד אדוני אחד ושמו אחד לשמו תפארת ולתהילה לך דודי לקראת כלה ירדי בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה ירדי בני שבת נקבלה לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה כי הם מקור הברכה מראש מקדם נסוכה סוף מעשה ומחשבה תחילה לך דודי לקראת כלה ירדי בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה ירדי בני שבת נקבלה היטורי כי באורך קומי אורי שדברי כבוד אדוני לך נגלה לך דודי לקראת כלה, ירדי, 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 בני שבת, נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, ירדי, 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 בני
Please
שבת,
rise and face the door in anticipation. Verse 9.
בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, ירדי, 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 בני שבת, נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, ירדי, 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 בני שבת, נקבלה.
We rise, we rise, we rise. We rise, humbly hearted, rise, won't be divided, rise, with spirit to guide us, rise, in hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here, in hope, in prayer, we're right here. In hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here. In hope, in prayer, we're right here. We rise, all of the children rise, elders with wisdom rise, ancestors surround us, rise. In hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here. In hope, in prayer, we're right here. In hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here. In hope, in prayer, we're right here. We rise up from the wreckage, rise with tears and with courage, rise. We're fighting for life, we rise. Baruch et Adonai Hamevorach, Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed, Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed, Baruch. Now we can sit. Now, there should be another handout around here somewhere, if my printer was doing the job. Yeah. As much as we got. We'll all catch on, don't worry. Sacred words, even the evenings. Wisdom opens gates locked around our hearts. Asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chochma poteach she'arim. This is the repeat, ready? Evening, the evenings, evening the frayed edges of our lives. Ma'ariv aravim. Amen. Understanding alters with the times, changing seasons, cycles divine. Uvitvuna mishane itim, umachalif et hazmanim. It repeats, evening,
the evenings, evening the frayed edges of our lives, Mariv, Aravim, Amen.
Paint diamonds on the canvas called sky. Soothe our souls with a lilting lullaby. Umesaderet hakochavim, v'mishmorotehem b'rakia kirtzono. Evening,
the evenings, evening the frayed edges of our lives, Mariv, Aravim, Amen.
Rolling, rolling into the night, rolling, rolling away the light. Golel or mipnei hoshech, vehoshech mipnei or.
Evening, the evening, evening the frayed edges of our lives, Mariv, Aravim, Amen.
Spirit of the night, we bless your name. Eternal light, eternal flame. El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed. Evening,
evening,
the evening,
the evening,
evening the
frayed edges of our lives, Mariv, Aravim, Amen. Mariv, Aravim, Amen.
Page 32.
Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha havta, Amcha havta. Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu lemadeta, Otanu lemadeta. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shachbenu, v'kumenu ne'atziach b'chukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, ובמשפוטיך לעולם ועד. חייכם חיינו, ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגה יומם ולילה, נגה יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol lebavcha u'b'chol nafshecha v'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher nochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibartam bam v'shivtecha v'techa uvleftecha b'derech ושופך וקומך ושרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי וכי הם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות להם אלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Amen. Let's all read together in the English on page 37. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you're rested. Let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai, your God. Emet ve'emunah, all this we hold to be true and trustworthy for us, that you alone are our God, and we are Israel, your people. And Moses, Miriam, and all Israel sang to you together, lifting their voices joyously, as we do now. Mi chamocha on page 40.
Mihi chamocha balim Adonai, mihi kamocha nedar bakodesh, norati lo osefele, norati lo osefele, mahalechutecha rahu banecha, bokei ayam lifnei Moshe uMiriam. Zeli, Zeli, Anu ve'amru, Adonai himlo le'olam va'ed. Yadai, 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 yadai. ונאמר כי פלאי את יעקב ויעלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני
ברוך שמו
גאל ישראל.
Amen. 43.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms.
We rise for the Amidah, the most intimate of prayers. Start together just asking for the words to flow. Yananai, 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 Adonai. Yananai, 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 Svatai Tiftach. Yananai, 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 Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid Tehilatecha. Yananai, 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 Adonai. Yananai, 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 Svatai Tiftach. Yananai, 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 Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid Tehilatecha. 48. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני Ha'el HaKadosh. I invite you to finish your prayer privately, either with the text between pages 54 and 60 or the text of your heart. And when you're finished, be seated and meditate from there.
קיבו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו דמיונותינו רצה דמיונותינו קדשנו מצוותינו סבאינו מתדרך שוטר רבנו ועבדך באמת רב ימינו תנאי אלוהינו בעבר רצת שבת קודשך וינוך ועשו מקדש קדש השבת מודים אנחנו לך שאתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו לעולם בצור חיינו ונשנו אותנו דור ודור ודה לך צוות תפילתך עין עושים כאילו תמוך השמח ואינו לך ועל כולם יתברך ותורם שלך מלכנו תמיד נשמע באמת האמן שותים לזוזים ברוך אותך בעד שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם כי אתה המלך אדוני כל שלום טוב בעיניך לברך את
Bottom of 62.
Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru Amen. Ya na 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 ya 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 na 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 oh say shalom bimromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel
To all in the world. And let us say,
ve'imru
let us say,
Amen.
whenever we gather, we always Make sure to offer a prayer for healing, whether it be for healing of body, of spirit, of psyche, relationship, self. It's all kosher. It appears that our list is growing every time we breathe, so it is our custom to pause in between the stanzas of this prayer on page 253 and call out the names of those people that we are holding in our hearts. I've got some, but I think there are more just even since we began the service. Let's hold them in our hearts.
Mi shebera avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen.
This week we're especially holding in our hearts Millie Rottenberg, Howard Simon, Gloria Berkowitz, Gittel Bat Chana, Bernice Portney, Beryl Ben Sima Vishmuel Leib, Sholem Avram Ben Golda Yeshayahu, Steve Gellis, Michael Rosenblum, Harav Miriam Yael Chaya Bat Sarah Yitzchak, Menachem Mendel Ben Yehuditu Michael, Maxwell Zwain, Dora Montserrate, Dr. Isoken Osemwota, Alan Mentha, Alon Ben Yael, Marlon Williams, Eric Rivchin, Bela Leah Bat Chaya Zelda V'chaim, all of those in our community who are down with COVID but thank God are recovering, Tessa Kushner, Karen, John, Ori, and Ava Pinn, Phil and Amanda Gary, Emily and Jordan Eisen, Ellie Klein, was it Ellie Klein? Did I get that right? Alex Bronner, Peril Bat Tamar, Baruch Ben Bracha, Malka Bat Chaya, Marlene Schwartz, and to these names we add
Rosalind Ackerbaum, Dovitovia, Ben Bela. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
may they know wholeness and healing speedily, uneventfully, and fully. And care for those, watch over those, please, who take care of them too. Shabbat Shalom. Okay, so, well, I'm not that worried about this. I was going to ask for forgiveness if you've heard me teach these texts before. Rabbis have two recurring nightmares. One is walking into high holidays, services being prepared, having not written a sermon. You know that dream? It's sort of like not being ready for a final exam. That's the rabbi version of that. And the other one is repeating yourself so often that no one listens to you anymore. I'm taking the chance tonight for the fight, because I think the fight for women's health, individual rights, and even the separation of church and state that our country is now facing is too important not to take the chance to even repeat myself. Maybe you know, tomorrow we'll bring abortion rights protests in 4 cities, New York, D.C., Chicago, and L.A., with Bands Off Our Bodies Day of Action. That's tomorrow. And the National Council of Jewish Women has organized a rally for abortion rights also in D.C. on Tuesday. There are actually buses coming from all over the East Coast to that. The National Council of Jewish Women's website rightly states that for too long, the American narrative about religion and abortion has ignored Jewish voices, and it's past time for that to end. I also happen to find it particularly galling to watch a group of mostly male politicians and clergy presume to have the right to dictate the fate of another woman's life, but that's personal, not necessarily religious. While and I don't think I am alone in this room to treasure the value of individual liberty, as a religious leader, I believe it is high time that Jews claim the moral high ground when it comes to abortion. It is high time for Jews to reclaim the biblical basis for abortion. And it is high time for Jews to reclaim the fundamentally religious center with both a capital R and small r on abortion rights. And so while I am the first to uphold an individual's right to make decisions affecting their own health and body, Jewishly speaking, I have to admit, I bristle just a little at the very thin Jewish textual documentation that most pro-abortion, even Jewish pro-abortion activists cite. It is true and it is fair, but far from a religious point of view, the Jewish perspective goes much deeper, and I believe that it is even more profound than what the secular voices have been offering. Now, I think, and this is why I'm teaching this tonight, I think that knowing the religious Jewish teachings on abortion is vitally important. Because without it, what we do is we cede the ethical and biblical and religious moral ground to Christian anti-abortion voices who erect a false religious secular divide. Without it, it paints liberal Jews as godless and without morals, who don't care or care little for human life. Without it, it paints our Torah with inaccuracies. So I'm admitting fully that I'm a text geek, and I hope you will appreciate this and consider this your Jewish textual primer on abortion. Maybe you've heard this, maybe you haven't, but I think it's really important in the conversation. To start, the only time the Bible speaks of abortion is in Exodus 21. Yes, that is Torah. And the story goes, the narrative goes, that if 2 men are fighting, and in the course of that fight, a pregnant woman gets caught in the middle of it, and the baby that she's carrying is aborted, she miscarries, the Torah specifically teaches, it says specifically that the loss of the fetus is not murder or even manslaughter. The maximum, it says, might be a fine, according to the judge. Other outcomes, however, such as injuring the mother or property, that may adjudicate much further and harsher damages. And this section in Exodus 21 comes directly after stating, also in Exodus 21, that, quote, one who fatally strikes a person shall be put to death. So the Torah is already saying that the punishment for killing is the death penalty. Whether or not that happens is another story, but at least it's on paper, it's put to death. But that causing a miscarriage or the loss of a fetus is most definitely not that. And this is important because not only does the Bible clearly present actions that cause this loss of a fetus as not killing, it doubly says so by delineating the penalty for both. That's it. That's all the Bible says about abortion. Jewishly speaking, however, the rabbis of the Talmud do continue the debate often and in significant detail. And again, as a religious leader, I think it is time for us to steer the conversation about when life begins, right? Because that has been co-opted, the question of when does life begin? But that is not the Jewish question. The important question for us is not when life begins, right? As my son, who's the doctor, says, an amoeba is life, but we won't go there, right? The question is what point in the development of a fetus is that fetus given the same rights as a human being and as the woman who is carrying that fetus? Does that fetus claim even more rights than the woman carrying it? Now, this is where it gets really interesting between Jewish and Christian theology, because underlying this question, at least from a Christian perspective and Jewish, are key theological differences between the two religions. So, at least according to the Catholic Church, by virtue of being born, every person is a sinner. This is the Catholic, right, the Christian, right? And so, by definition, the mother or the woman carrying a fetus is all the more so a sinner, right? But by virtue of not having yet been born, the fetus is what might be called pure or lacking sin, okay? Now that is very, very different from the Jewish perspective. We have absolutely nothing like that in our canon, in our philosophical canon. What we understand that fetus as being is potential life, as opposed to the woman who's carrying that fetus, that is real life. So we're not saying that potential life is like chopped liver, right, so to speak, but doesn't compare to, by definition, the woman carrying this fetus who is a daughter, maybe a sister, a wife, possibly even a mother. People in her life who love her, rely on her, right? The fetus is potential, but it's not real. Jewish texts also understand that a fetus is 100% dependent on the life of that woman. There is no independent life of that fetus without the woman. Until it is viable on its own, Jewish texts are very clear that this fetus is the same as like her thigh, right? You don't cut off a thigh and live. So it is completely under the domain of her body and completely dependent on her life. In fact, Talmud also states that for about the first trimester, it has the status of water, fluid, okay? Only when, now this is ancient, we might say that it's a little bit later, maybe in that third trimester, but according to the Talmud, only when the head is visible does that fetus gain the rights of a human being and considered as fully human in that way. In fact, even in labor, the Talmud in Sanhedrin says that if the woman is in mortal danger during labor, it is incumbent, it must happen, that even if you have to cut off the arms and legs of that fetus to save the mother, you must do so. Now, we don't want to think about that. That feels pretty gruesome, but it's that clear in the Talmud how much more so the life of the mother takes over the life of a fetus. So even in the most extreme cases, the mother's well-being is paramount. It's not even a question. Actually, in fact, in the Talmud, The fetus, in that case, who is endangering the life of the woman, is given the designation of a rodef. And maybe you've heard rodef shalom. A rodef is a pursuer. And in technical terms, a rodef is someone or something that is pursuing a person's life. And in any other situation, including this, if a rodef is potentially threatening your life, we are obligated to save ourselves, even if that means that we have to kill the pursuer. Right? This comes up in other textual conversations. And this is such an important religious distinction. I have to say, this is why a pregnant woman must be very careful when seeking care, because it is true that some Catholic hospitals will prioritize care according to their theological interpretations. And if it's a question of the fetus or the mother, they'll go for the sinless one. The Talmud even goes so far to stress how the fetus would not even have human rights, where in the tractate, the Talmudic tractate Arachin, based on an earlier Mishnah, it confirms that even if a pregnant woman is sentenced to death, they don't wait for her to deliver. The sentence is carried out without delay. Not even the woman's husband has a claim. The Talmud emphasizes it is her body and just another part of her body. Throughout the annals of Jewish texts, Jewish law is abundantly clear. The adult life takes precedence. A woman's fate is what is paramount all the way up until the moment of birth. Now, as I said, potential life is not nothing. In Judaism, we uphold human life as the most important value, bar none. But this is not a question of being pro-life. Jews are totally pro-life. We are pro-family. We are pro-children. And it's not going out on a limb to say that people who support abortion are also pro-life, pro-family, and pro-children. But of course, there are subtleties, distinctions. And going back to that rodef, the pursuer, the one who's pursuing your life, what we have to ask is, to what extent do we draw a distinction between one's physical health and one's mental well-being or one's mental health? The truth is that while most Orthodox decisors would agree that abortion would be absolutely necessary, a mitzvah, if the woman's physical life was threatened, far fewer would permit it for bad timing, and no one would recommend abortion as a form of birth control. If asked, more liberal rabbis would consider any number of factors to a woman's well-being as a reason, as sad as it may be. And this is why what's going on in our country now is as much about choice and health and respect and really taking a look at the values of humanity as it is about the separation of church and state. Because taking this away would mean that potentially that a woman's life could not be saved. However way you want to understand the life, whether it's mental stability, economic stability, or physical health. Ultimately, we also need to draw upon the Talmud again in the tractate Yoma, which draws upon the biblical verse in Proverbs that says, "The heart knows the bitterness of its soul." And the rabbis here in this tractate of the Talmud argue about what to do if a person is at odds with their doctor over treatment of some kind. And the rabbis staunchly advocate it's obvious that a person knows himself or herself better than anyone else does. What would you have otherwise said? That the doctor has more standing? Rather, this comes to teach that indeed, as in Proverbs, the heart knows the bitterness of its soul, meaning a person knows herself best. And it's these kinds of texts and this kind of careful, critical thought and sensitive analysis that makes me proud, not only of being a Jew, but of our intelligent and nuanced textual traditions. So, if you'll forgive me, this concludes your primer on Jewish sources on abortion. Learn it. Be proud of it. Speak it loudly in a profoundly religious defense of abortion rights. Shabbat Shalom. It's the 28th day of the Omer. So let's turn to page 278 and count the Omer. As we count the Omer, we're reminded of the importance of counting each day of our lives and of striving to make each day count. Thus can we give meaning to the prayer of the psalmist. Teach us to count our days so that we may acquire a heart of wisdom. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. Hayom yom 28 yom shehem arba'a shavuot la'omer. Today is the 28th day of the Omer. That is 4 weeks of the Omer. And invite us to rise and repeat after me. This is Aleinu. Let's have a little doom back here. V'hashevota el levavecha ki Adonai hu ha'Elohim v'hashevota el levavecha ki Adonai hu ha'Elohim v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol ha'aretz bayom ha'hu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. We may be seated. We turn our attention now to those in our lives who gave us life, who walked with us, held our hands, taught us, but who no longer walk this earth. If I call the name of your loved one, I invite you to rise in place. Observing Shloshim are for Michael Daniel Lado, and observing the yard site of Bradley Fields, Arthur Levine, my dad, Fred G. Morit, Marvin Pinn, Tess Steyerman, Evelyn Strauss, Gertrude Wygotsky. Is there anyone else here who is in mourning or who is observing a yard site leaving the room? Oh, yeah, that's straight. Make a left at the kindergarten room. Thanks, Ben. It's all about praising life. And what could be more life-affirming than that? Or if it is your custom to rise for the mourner's yard site, I invite you to rise. If not, please remain seated. Page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah ve'alma divra cherutei ve'amlich malchutei v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala uvizman kariv ve'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevorach leolam ulamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitale v'yithalal shmei dekudisha brichu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma ve'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shamaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru.
Amen.
Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru. Amen.
Ose shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru. Amen.
Please be seated. So, Craig, you want to do triple duty and do announcements? That's all right. First, I have to know it's to the right page. Here we go.
Pulling the Bob Barker.
You bet. All yours.
Hello. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'm going to skip the first announcement, during which I would ordinarily thank the family who sponsored the Kiddush, because that would be weird for me to do that. Seth, thank you very much for running the live stream, as always, and anybody who is interested in joining Seth's live stream team, please reach out and join us. Please join us tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m., as Noah Linder becomes a bat mitzvah. She's loving every moment of this. Yesterday was the Hudson Gives countywide fundraising drive, and thank you to the 70 donors who gave to Temple Beth-El as part of that drive. We raised over $10,000 for the social hall renovation. Hudson Gives has extended the giving to May 18th, so it's not too late. We raised 57.7% of our goal of $18,000 and came in 19th place out of 101 organizations county-wide. And you can find the link in the weekly to get us to our goal. Borscht, our annual stand-up comedy festival, is back, and we are celebrating Temple Beth-El's 150th birthday. Mark your calendar for June 11th and help us sell ads for the Birthday Journal. The ad deadline has been extended to this Sunday, May 15th. It is our first big fundraiser in 3 years, so please help us make it a robust success. And we invite you to stay for the oneg immediately following services and consider sponsoring an oneg for a special occasion or just to celebrate being back together in person after 2 or more long years. And next week, if that's not enough, we will have a wine and cheese pre-neg before services beginning at 7:15 p.m. Religious school and Shabbat families, please join us for our end-of-school Lag Omer family picnic this Sunday, May 15th from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Meanwhile, Friday, May 20th is graduation Shabbat. Please let Rabbi Morit know who in your family is graduating this year from anything. Starts at 7:15 for wine and cheese, service at 8 p.m. And if you are a high school graduate, Hillel wants to welcome incoming freshmen in college, so please let Rabbi Morit know your seniors' plans so they can be connected to their local Hillel house. The Temple Beth-El Book Club will meet Thursday, May 26th, to discuss Moor Marian's Blondankig in the Belgian Resistance. Fried Heller speaks. Apologies. Moor Marian will join us. That is Blondankig in the Belgian Resistance. Friede Heller speaks. I think I got it better the second time. I'm not sure.
I think that's right.
All right. Our next Shabbat will be in person, May 28th, 10:30 a.m. for singing, dancing, story time, and other age-appropriate activities. And our Shavuot congregational picnic and ice cream social will take place Sunday, June 5th from 12 noon to 3 p.m.
Oh, it's also official that we're doing an all-night Zoom around the country, Tikkun Leil Shavuot, like we did the last 2 years. So rabbis from all over the country showing up at whatever time zone, and that'll be out in the weekly too.
My kids, you can stay up late if you join the Zoom. We will have live music at the congregational picnic for Shavuos, and
Yay, Ben.
change the world one meal at a time with 1 hour out of your week. Help feed our hungry and homeless neighbors at our food pantry, Wednesdays at 5:30 p.m. Don't have an hour? Help feed them with a donation for the food we buy. Details are on our website, or just show up on Wednesday. You'll be glad you did. And I think that is the announcements.
It is. So all we have to, well done, well done. You got,
Never gotten applause.
you've got the job, Craig. I'm going to invite us to turn to page 321 for Adon Olam, a little preview of what's to come. Right there. Okay, we'll do this together.
Adon Olam,
Adon Olam,
Asher Malach,
Asher Malach,
B'terem Kol,
B'terem Kol,
Yitzir Nivra,
Yitzir Nivra,
Yet Nasa,
V'yet Nasa,
V'chefza kol,
Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, Ve'acharei Kilelcha Kol, Ve'abo Yimloch Nora Adon Olam, Ve'hu Haya, Ve'hu Hoveh, Ve'hu Yeh Tifra Adon Olam, Adon Olam,
Adon Olam,
Asher Malach,
Asher Malach,
B'terem Kol,
B'terem Kol,
Yitzir Nivra,
Yitzir Nivra,
V'yet Nasa,
V'yet Nasa,
V'chesed kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, V'hu Echad, V'en Sheni, V'cham Shelo L'chach Bira Adon Olam, B'lei Rishit, B'li Tachlit, V'lo Haoz V'ham Yisra Adon Olam, Adon Olam,
Adon Olam,
Asher Malach,
Asher Malach,
B'terem Kol,
B'terem kol,
Yitzir Nivra,
Yitzir Nivra,
V'yet Nasa,
V'yet Nasa,
V'chesed kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, V'hu Eli, V'chai Golavi, V'ur Chai Ve'et Zara Adon Olam, V'hu Nisi, Umanosli, Manakosi Bayum Ikra Adon Olam, Adon Olam,
Adon Olam,
Asher Malach,
Asher Malach,
B'terem Kol,
B'terem kol,
Yitzir Nivra,
Yitzir Nivra,
V'yet Nasa,
V'yet Nasa,
V'chesed kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, Beyado Afkir Ruchi, Be'ishan Elach Ira Adon Olam, Ve'im Ruchi, Be'viyanti, Adonai V'lo Ira Adon Olam, Adon Olam,
Adon Olam,
Asher Malach,
Asher Malach,
B'terem Kol,
B'terem Kol,
Yitzir Nivra,
Yitzir Nivra,
V'yet Nasa,
V'yet Nasa,
V'chesed kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon
Olam.
And we do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. I'm going to teach you tomorrow morning, but I want you to know it now. Rub your hands together. If you're not feeling the heat, you're not feeling the warmth, you're not rubbing hard enough. So rub them hard and aim that love and that warmth at Noah. Ready? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz Shabbat Shalom. Maya, you want to pass it around? Yeah, you. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you. Thank you, you too.